PathMonk is the intelligent tool for website lead generation. With increasing online competition, over 98% of website visitors don't convert. The ability to successfully show your value proposition and support visitors in the buying journey separates you from the competition online. PathMonk qualifies and converts leads on your website by figuring out where they are in the buying journey and influencing them in key decision moments with relevant micro experiences like case studies, intro videos, and much more. Stay relevant to your visitors and increase conversions by 50%. Add PathMonk to your website in seconds. Let the AI do all the work and get access to 50% more qualified leads while you keep doing marketing and sales as usual. Check us on pathmonk.com. Welcome to today's episode. Let's talk about today's guest. We have Peter Pongracz from Virto Solar, Head of Sales and Marketing with them. How are you doing today, Peter?
Hi, Ernesto. Thanks for having me here. Fantastic.
It's great to have you. We're talking a little bit about Virto Solar beforehand, and I'm sure our listeners are tuning in, wondering what that is all about. So let's kick it off with that, Peter. In your own words, tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so basically, very simply put, Virto Solar is a software company, and then we specialize in software tools for solar engineers and solar engineering companies. So basically, we are one of the fastest growing software companies in the solar space. I would dare to say even globally. So we've been doubling our revenues every single year in the last 2 years, and this year we are still on track to do the same. So it's quite exciting times.
That's always good news, right, for everybody when it's doubling every year. That's some good news. And so that way our listeners could get a good understanding then of their Virto Solar, Peter. What would you say is that key problem that you guys are solving for clients?
So it's actually quite simple. We specialize in a niche of a niche, so in a very specific market segment, even inside of solar. So we specialize in large-scale rooftop applications and also large-scale ground-mounted systems. So we are really targeting the utility-scale solar companies who are installing, comparable output projects such as even a nuclear power plant. So that's our bread and butter.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, great to hear that. So, I mean, you mentioned, right, it's really sectored down to a niche of a niche. So I do get to ask, what would be the vertical? What would be the ideal ICP then for you guys, Peter?
Sorry, what would be the ideal?
Yeah, what would be your ideal ICP?
Okay. So basically, when it comes to targeting and customers, the ideal customer would be an engineering firm or an EPC. That's a bit of a jargon in solar, so engineering, procurement, and construction. So basically, these companies are the ones who are doing the preliminary design and then also the final design, pre-construction for a large-scale solar project. So, of course, these guys are used to using different tools, typically legacy tools from architecture, such as AutoCAD, which is the gold standard globally. And basically, our most advanced tool is called VirtoCAD. It's an extension of AutoCAD for the specific use case of solar. Because typically engineers in the past, and still today, they used to use AutoCAD and they would be drawing entire panels and sections one by one and basically trying to place those panels in the most optimal direction so they yield the most amount of energy produced. And this is where we come in. So we basically have specific presets for solar from bringing the ground mesh in, then placing panels on that ground mesh and basically also orienting those panels in the most optimal way. So your project has the most output.
Okay, great to hear that then. And so say I was in the IPC business, how would I usually find out about Virto Solar? Is there a top client acquisition channel for you guys?
Yeah, I would say we are using a hybrid model. So we have what are converting very well for us is the big trade shows. We do attend quite a lot of them in Europe, and this year we are also expanding to the US and also Latin America. So that's quite exciting. I'm looking forward to going to LA in September to RE+. But as far as the channels go, I would say trade shows would be number one. Of course, we have our online strategies such as SEO, SEA, basically different types of banners. But of course, we are still optimizing this, and we are trying to push through, of course, more potential clients through the channel.
Okay, perfect. Great to hear that. So then, so that way our listeners who are tuned in can go and visit you. They on your website, they could check you out at virto.solar. What role does a website then play for client acquisition?
So the website is actually a central point. Of course, it's kind of your online business card, online identity. And for a kind of complex product as we have, it's quite difficult to distill it down to a very minimal amount of text. So that was our number one challenge that we worked on continuously, and we are still working on. But maybe talking about the website, I think what's more important is what's actually behind the website. So maybe if you have, a CRM system or an ERP or something like that, I think that's the more important part of running the engine behind it.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you so much for sharing that then. So on that note then, Peter, is there any tools or tips or methods that you would recommend to our listeners as far as some website lead generation?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you want to track where your traffic is coming from, and you constantly want to keep an eye on, who are the perfect countries and the perfect buyer personas for yourself. But of course, there's no silver bullet. You are always trying to get closer to the optimal. But what I would say is, in our case, the product is good enough to kind of drive the growth itself. Of course, you need to support it with marketing activities as well. But yeah, I think number one is you need to have a good enough product and a product market fit. So that would be my two suggestions.
Definitely. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Great. Okay. Well, let's switch gears a little bit then here, Peter, and let's talk about you as a leader. You being the head of sales and marketing there for Virto Solar. What are some key tasks you like to focus on your day-to-day work?
Every day is different. So we are startup scale up. Right now we are over 40 employees. So it's some days are quite chaotic. Some days are more calm. But what I try and tend to do in the mornings, I try to block my time for creative thinking and creative problem solving. So when it comes to coming up with new solutions, thinking about strategy, thinking about, I call it active thinking, where you are producing a solution to a particular problem that you want to solve. I think your first 2 hours, between 8 and 10 a.m. is the most important. And secondly, of course, I'm the head of sales, but I really like to speak to our customers, because then there is no barrier or distance between myself, my understanding of the product, and how the customers perceive the product. So the most important thing is you can think that your product is in the right place in terms of product market fit. But of course, everything is irrelevant what you personally think or your boss thinks. What's important, what the customer thinks. So that's why I'm also trying to spend at least 30 to 40% of my time actively selling and actively communicating with the clients.
Definitely. Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing your day-to-day. I mean, it sounds like you have a full plate there on your hands. But in the between times, Peter, how do you stay up to date with all the news, trends, strategies out there in the marketing world? Is there a preferred channel that you like to go with?
Yeah, indeed. This is actually one of my favorite topics of productivity, marketing, sales, and kind of SaaS businesses. So if we are talking about productivity itself, my favorite podcast is the Tim Ferriss Show. So it's basically one of my go-tos in terms of thinking and strategies, etc. And more solar related, I would say the Solar Mavericks podcast is quite nice. It's a US-based podcast, which is very, very nice. And more broadly, speaking about sustainability, I would say Clean Tech Talks.
Definitely. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for those insights for our listeners. And well, let's jump into our next section then here, Peter, which is our rapid fire question rounds. Are you ready for them?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Awesome. First off then, Peter, what is the last book that you read?
The last book that I read, it's probably the 80-20 principle. by Richard Koch. I think it brings some valuable insights in terms of business in general and also decision making. So it's I would highly recommend it to everyone. And what had the most impact on my work and life, I would say the 4-hour work week. So that's also one of my go-tos.
Okay, interesting to read the 4-hour work week. I've heard that one before. Next up then, Peter, is if there would be no boundaries in technology, what would be that one thing that you want to have fixed for your role as a marketer today?
I think one of the big pain points is always outreach, right? So outbound is quite difficult to hack and handle. Of course, you want to put across more personalized messaging towards your customers, but this is only step number 2. So step number 1 is still building on the bottom of the pyramid, where you have the awareness stage, and where you can. The bottom line is you need to create value to your customers first, and then you can try to sell them something. So in our business, it happens to us that even by measuring all of our activities, a particular client would have been nurtured or converted after the 8th or 9th touch point. So that's a pretty long journey. And many people are trying to convert the client first without thinking about the awareness stage of the whole journey and focusing on that. So I think it's very undervalued and underestimated by many companies. Focus on building your brand, building the awareness, and ultimately also solving a challenge for your customers.
Okay, interesting take there, Peter. Well, next then, if there's one repetitive task that you could automate, what would that be?
There are multiple things in this category, but I already mentioned outbound or outreach, which would be one of them. Meetings, meetings can be quite time-consuming and also mental energy consuming. So I think probably that's something I would automate to the highest extent. But of course, there are some pretty interesting AI tools, such as the ones we just spoke about before the podcast itself, that kind of join the meeting instead of you, and basically they do the heavy lifting, taking notes, summarizing the entire conversation, even drafting your call to actions after the call.
That's fun. Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Peter. Peter, we are coming to the end of the show today, but before we do end, I do want to give you the last word. So say someone forgets everything about the interview today. What is that one thing they should remember about Virto Solar?
We help solar engineers reducing the actual engineering design time by up to 80%. So basically, let us do the heavy lifting. We provide you the tools, and you can focus on your work and enjoy your free times on your holidays.
That's really nice, right? Virto Solar is redefining software for solar engineer. Speed up your engineering process. Check them out at virto.solar. Peter, thank you so much for being on with us today. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'm looking forward to our next episode at Pathman Presents. Thanks a lot, Peter.
My pleasure. Cheers. Bye.